أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، بارئ الخلائق أجمعين، باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلقه العبد المؤيد والرسول المسدد، حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد. وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين وصحابته المنتجبين. قال الله تعالى في كتابه الكريم: يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prescribed upon Muslims the way He had prescribed upon nations before Islam, fasting of the holy month of Ramadan. And there are several purposes behind fasting. There are several philosophies behind fasting. Number one, it is to taste and feel the hunger and thirst of the poor. How else would those who are well off financially know what it feels like to live in poverty without feeling the hunger and thirst of the poor? In the holy month of Ramadan, we get a sense, a feeling of that hunger and thirst. The difference is that at the time of iftar, that hunger and thirst ends. But for the poor, it continues. It continues all day long, all year long. So this is one of the reasons why we fast. Two, fasting is a lesson on sincerity. You see, with everything we can show off, with our salah, with our hajj, with our umrah, we take pictures, we post, we show everyone that we've been to hajj, we've been to Mecca and Medina. In our salah and all of our acts of worship, we can show off, except with fasting. Fasting is not seen. Fasting is the lack of eating and drinking. Unless we tell people that we're fasting, no one would know that we are fasting. And hence, fasting ingrains in us the sense of sincerity. Doing things for the sake of Allah, not for the sake of others. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows that we are fasting. Unless we tell others, no one would know. And hence, Al-Hadith Al-Qudsi says, الصوم لي وأنا أجزي به. That fasting is for me. It's the only act of devotion that we perform that only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows about it. And hence it is performed sincerely to Allah. Again, unless we tell people. But if we don't tell people, who would know that we're fasting? No one, because there's nothing to show off in fasting. Thus, it puts the grains of sincerity in our hearts, encourages us to be sincere. Fasting is the most sincere act of devotion that we may perform. Allah says, "As-sawmu li," fasting is for me, wa ana ujzi bih, and I will reward those who fast personally. Number three, fasting gives us immunity. Fasting strengthens our sense of taqwa. If we have the ability to abstain from eating and drinking and smoking, and usually the things that we do that are lawful in Islam, if we have the ability to abstain from them for 12, 13, 14 hours a day, we definitely have the strength to abstain from things that are unlawful. Because if you have the strength to abstain from something lawful, you will definitely have the strength to abstain from things that are unlawful. It develops in us the sense of piety. And Allah says in the Quran, لَعَلَّكُمْ كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الصِّيَامِ. Fasting has been prescribed upon you. كَمَا كُتِبَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ. Don't think that you're the only ones that fast. People before you also fasted. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. So that you may perhaps, لَعَلَّ in Arabic tufidu taraji, that perhaps you may become pious. That means not everyone will become pious from fasting. Not everyone will benefit from fasting. Some will only suffer of thirst and hunger, and their fasting will go to vain. Only some of you will gain piety. Is fasting simply reduced to avoiding eating and drinking? For the most part, for most of us, this is what fasting is about. Not eating and not drinking. Ramadan is about such, not more. Yet we believe what we learn from the ahadith of Ahlul Bayt and the traditions of Ahlul Bayt is that the entire body should fast, not just the stomach. Not just the stomach fast from eating and drinking, but the entire body has to participate in this ritual. The eyes, the ears, the tongue, the senses, what you see, what you hear, what you say. Fasting has a holistic nature. The entire body has to participate. What good is fasting if my stomach is fasting? I don't eat and I don't drink, but all of my other organs and other senses, they've broken the fast. They've broken the fast. It defeats the purpose of fasting. Everyone has to participate. Everything in the body has to participate in fasting. Amir al-Mu'minin says, صيام القلب عن الفكر في الآثام أفضل من صيام البطن عن الطعام. The mind should be fasting. Even the mind. The mind wanders off. Things of sin, but we think we fantasize over it. We dream over it. It says abstain from thinking of haram, which is the highest level. Although Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not hold us accountable for what we think, Allah holds us accountable for what we do. As for what happens in the mind, that we are safe from. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not hold us accountable. But imagine a person who can control his thoughts or her thoughts and does not even think of sinning is greater than the fasting of the stomach from not eating and not drinking. Al-Sharif al-Radi and As-Sayyid al-Murtada, these were two brothers, both scholars, both very righteous, both very well known in Baghdad, both descendants from Imam Musa ibn Ja'far. Al-Sharif al-Radi is the person who compiled al-Balagha. His brother As-Sayyid al-Murtada was the top marj of his time, the top jurist of his time. When their father passed away, he left them a library. And so they split the library in half. Al-Sharif al-Radi took half the book, As-Sayyid al-Murtada took the other half. They split the entire library in half. There was one book remaining, and both wanted this book. As-Sayyid al-Murtada made a suggestion. He said, let the one who has never committed a sin in his life take the book. Meaning whom? Meaning himself. He has never committed, he knows himself, he's never committed a sin in his life. Let him take the book. Al-Sharif al-Radi said, I have another suggestion. Let the person who never thought of sinning in his life take the book. Sayyid al-Murtada passed on the book to his brother, Al-Sharif al-Radi. He said, you are deserving of this book. Not thinking of sinning. This is a higher status of fasting. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. يقول الله عز وجل من لم تصم جوارحه عن محارمي. He who his bodily organs do not fast from haram behavior and haram acts. فلا حاجة لي في أن يدع طعامه وشرابه من أجلي. I don't want his fasting over food and drinks. Does he think that I only want him to abstain? Allah is saying in this hadith al-Qudsi, Allah saying that, do my servants think that I only want them to abstain from eating and drinking? No, this is only an intro. This is only the beginning for the entire body to fast, for all of their senses to fast. If none of his senses are fasting, but he's fasting from eating and drinking, I don't want this sort of fast. What good is this sort of? The entire body has to be fasting. Another hadith says, كم من صائم ليس له من صيامه إلا الجوع والظمأ. There are so many people that fast that gain nothing from their fast except hunger and thirst. That is the only thing that they gain. Materialistically and spiritually. Religiously, they only gained hunger and thirst. They didn't grow. They didn't benefit. Fasting had no influence on them. They didn't benefit from fasting other than hunger and thirst. وَكَمْ مِنْ قَائِمٍ لَيْسَ لَهُ مِنْ قِيَامِهِ إِلَّا السَّهْرُ وَالْعَنَاءُ. And some in Ramadan, they stay up at night, they pray Salat al-Layl. They spend the night in dua and in worship, in supplicating, in salah, but the only thing that they gained was lack of sleep, pain, and being tired, nothing else. They didn't gain spiritually. They didn't gain religiously. They didn't grow. Nothing was obtained from this sort of fasting. We believe, my dear brothers and sisters, that fasting is not just the fasting of the stomach. This is just the beginning. This is the simplest, easiest form of fasting. The easiest form of fasting is that we abstain from eating and drinking and smoking and from marital relations and so on and so forth. This is only the beginning. This is the simplest form. There are higher forms of fasting that we need to attain and we need to achieve. This is only the beginning. We have the fasting of the eyes, the fasting of the ears, the fasting of the tongue, the fasting of the mind. This is true fasting. This is the sort of fasting that we should be attaining, and it should be our goal. Let's begin with the fasting of the eyes. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says, إِذَا أَصْبَحْتَ صَائِمًا. When you wake up fasting, if you decide on fasting that day, فَلْيَصُمْ سَمْعُكَ وَبَصَرُكَ مِنَ الْحَرَامِ. Let your ears be fasting as well. And your eyes should be fasting as well from that which is haram. وَجَارِحَتُكَ. And all of your bodily organs. وَجَمِيعُ أَعْضَائِكَ. All of your body parts. مِنَ الْقَبِيحِ. They should also be fasting. They should also be refraining. They should also be exercising self-control. وَدَعْ عَنْكَ الْهَذِي. Do not speak nonsense. When you're fasting, don't speak nonsense. Don't say things that don't make sense. Joking, being, wasting your time in saying things that don't benefit your dunya nor benefit your akhirah. وَأَذَى الْخَادِمِ. And if you have a servant, if you have someone working for you, it could even be an employee. Don't hurt them. Don't bother them. A lot of times when we're fasting, because we're not eating, it affects us. It affects our mood, our akhlaq. Maybe we become angry very easy because we're hungry. We're not having sufficient nutrition. We become angry. It affects our akhlaq. So we take it out on those that are in our life. Our wife, our kids, employees, co-workers. We become moody. This defeats the purpose of fasting. Fasting is also controlling your akhlaq, controlling your mood. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, وَمَنْ حَسَّنَ اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد وَمَنْ حَسَّنَ خُلُقَهُ فِي هَذَا الشَّهْرِ كَانَ لَهُ جَوَازًا عَلَى الصِّرَاطِ. I believe this is the hadith in the beginning of the month of Ramadan. He who can improve his akhlaq in the month of Ramadan. Usually our akhlaq become worse in the month of Ramadan. Worse because of fasting. We get tired, we become moody, we're not in the mood to speak to anyone, we're low on patience. Rasulullah says, on the contrary, enhance your akhlaq, This is the test. Where you're hungry, you're thirsty, you're tired, you haven't rested well, you haven't slept well, yet you can control your akhlaq. This is the test. وَلْيَكُنْ, Imam says, وَلْيَكُنْ عَلَيْكَ وِقَارُ الصِّيَامِ. Siyam, fasting, has some sort of composure, dignity, respect. You see some elders, ulama, the way they sit, the way they speak to others, it's full of composure, full of honor, full of respect. Fasting has composure. Make sure that when you're fasting, the Imam says, have that composure of fasting. Don't lose your composure. Don't be tired, don't be silly, don't be yelling and arguing. Compose yourself. Have that composure of fasting. And then he says, وَلَا تَجْعَلْ يَوْمَ صَوْمِكَ كَيَوْمِ فِطْرِكَ. Do not let the day that you're fasting be equal to the day that you're not fasting. When we're not fasting, we behave in a sort of way. We joke, we're humorous. Of course, there's nothing wrong with being humorous. But we tend to be silly. We don't control our senses. We don't control our eyes and ears and tongue. We let them loose. We don't exercise self-control. The Imam says, don't let the day that you're fasting be equal to the day that you're not fasting. Show a difference. Let people know that you're fasting. Not that you show off. Not that you show off with your fasting. But people should see a difference in you. Today this person is different in his akhlaq, in his demeanor, in his self-control, in what he says and what he does. We have to feel the difference. If there's no difference between the day that we fast and the day that we don't fast, then what benefit is there from fasting? What did we gain other than hunger and thirst? Our days have to be different. So the fasting of the eyes, my dear brothers and sisters, we lower our gaze. We fast from haram scenes, things that we should not see. We lower our gaze. وَقُلْ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ يَغُضُّوا مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِمْ. Tell the believing men to lower their gaze, not to stare. Not to stare. يَغُضُّوا. See, this is a wrong interpretation, a wrong translation. We usually say lower their gaze. No. يَغُضُّوا مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِمْ doesn't mean you lower your gaze. It means you don't stare. If you see something haram, you immediately turn around. You don't stare. You don't concentrate. يَغُضُّوا مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِمْ. وَقُلْ is this only for men? No. وَقُلْ لِلْمُؤْمِنَاتِ يَغْضُضْنَ مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِنْ. Tell the believing women also not to stare and to lower their gaze and not to concentrate on looking, but to look away from things that are not lawful for them to see. Sometimes we're exposed to indecent scenes on social media, watching a movie, in person, you're out on the street, at work, at the mall. You avoid. This is the fasting of the eyes. The eye has to also exercise self-control and fasting. Being mindful of what we see, of what we consume visually, what we take in. This has an effect, my dear friends. What we see has an effect on our soul. There's a connection between the eyes and the soul. It harms us. It can affect us. What we see can affect us. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, Al-nazaru sahmun min sahami iblis masmoom. That when you see something that you're not supposed to see, this is an arrow from shaitan, a poisonous arrow. You think a poisonous arrow doesn't have an effect? Doesn't leave marks? Leaves marks. You say that, what's the big deal? No, it leaves effects, it leaves marks. Instead, we may replace harmful content with unharmful content, with Islamic content, with reading. Ramadan is a time to be productive with reading things that are beneficial, watching an Islamic lecture, instead of watching things that are harmful, watching things that are beneficial. Our eyes controlling our eyes, controlling what we see, controlling that which can damage us. It doesn't necessarily have to be haram. It doesn't necessarily have to be haram. Scrolling on social media, comparing between yourself and others. Someone bought a car, someone is on a journey, someone is on a vacation, and you look at their pictures, you go through their photos, you go through their videos, and the sense of jealousy develops in you. You can control this. You can control this in the month of Ramadan. This could be the fasting of the eyes, that you stop this sort of behavior. And then we have the fasting of the ears. Our ears, what we consume, what we hear, we have to filter it out in the month of Ramadan. We have to fast with our ears. Not everything that we hear is beneficial to us. And also there's a connection from the ear to the heart. إن السمع والبصر ولا تقف ما ليس لك به علم إن السمع والبصر والفؤاد كل أولئك كان عنه مسؤولا. We'll be asked on the day of judgment about our ears, about our eyes, about our heart, what we let in our hearts, what we consumed with our ears, what we consumed with our eyes, will be held accountable. Fatima Zahra salamullahi alayha, she says, ما يصنع الصائم بصيامه إذا لم يصن لسانه وسمعه وبصره وجوارحه. What does a person fasting gain from fasting if he doesn't protect his eyes, his ears, his tongue, other bodily organs? We don't let them fast, but only our stomach fasts. Only our stomach fasts. What good is this? What good is this? It has absolutely no good. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says, إِذَا صُمْتَ فَلْيَصُمْ سَمْعُكَ وَبَصَرُكَ وَشَعْرُكَ وَجِلْدُكَ. When you fast, let your ears fast, and your eyes fast, and your hair fast, and your skin fast. You see, this is, the Imam is going all out, that your entire body has to fast. The entire body has to participate in fasting. It's not just the stomach. For us, it's just the stomach. Ramadan is upon us, we don't eat, we don't drink. That's it? No. The entire body has to fast. The hair fasts, and the skin fasts. Of course, this is a form of exaggeration. The Imam is trying to say that your entire body has to participate in the behavior of fasting. Fasting is not just the fasting of the mouth and the stomach. Our ears have to fast from ghiba, from namima. You know, ghiba is not just a person who's backbiting is committing a sin. No, the one who's listening is also committing a sin. Being attentive, giving them your ear, listening. You're not saying anything, you're not commenting, but you're listening, you're also guilty. You're also guilty of ghiba. You're just as guilty as the one who's saying ghiba. We avoid ghiba in the month of Ramadan. Our ears fast. From namima. From namima. What is namima? I come to you and I tell you, did you hear so-and-so was speaking about you? This is called namima. Tell them, I don't want to know. I don't care. I don't care. Someone spoke ill of me? I don't care. Don't tell me. Telling people that others have spoken ill of them, this is called namima. And the person who does this is called nammam. And he's the worst kind of people. They're the worst kind of people. Tell them, I don't care. I don't want to hear this. Because namima itself is a sin. This is a sin of itself. We guard our ears from ghiba, from namima. وَلَا يَغْتَبْ بَعْضُكُمْ بَعْضًا. Do not backbite against each other. أَيَحَبُّ أَحَدُكُمْ أَن يَأْكُلَ لَحْمَ أَخِيهِ مَيْتًا فَكَرِهْتُمُ. Do you wish to eat the flesh of your brother when he's dead? Of course you wouldn't. Ghiba is as bad as eating the dead flesh of your brother. Music. This is something that some people take lightly, but we shouldn't take lightly. And especially in the month of Ramadan, we guard our ears from music. وَاسْتَفْزِزْ مَنْ اسْتَطَعْتَ مِنْهُمْ بِصَوْتِكَ. Allah says to Shaitan. Shaitan declared an all-out war against the children of Adam. Why? Because he was kicked out of heaven because of whom? Adam. because of Adam. So he declared an all-out war against the children of Adam. Allah says, go. Do whatever you'd like. Try to seduce as many as you can. واستفزز من استطعت منهم بصوتك واجلب عليهم بخيلك ورجلك وشاركهم في الأموال والأولاد وعدهم وما يعدهم الشيطان إلا غرورا. Go. One of the tools of shaitan is music. It's the sound of shaitan. One of the tools that shaitan uses against Bani Adam and the children of Adam is music. We guard our ears for music. وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنِ اللَّغْوِ مُعْرِضُونَ. Laghu, the hadith says, it literally means vain talk. The Imam in a hadith says it means music. The mu'mineen avoid music. They don't listen to music. They don't listen to singing. وَإِذَا سَمِعُوا اللَّغْوَ أَعْرَضُوا عَنْهُ. If they hear vain talk, music, singing, they avoid it. أَعْرَضُوا عَنْهُ. They avoid it. They leave it. We guard our ears. In the month of Ramadan, we let our ears also fast. Instead, we can listen to Quran. We can replace haram with halal. You listen to Quran. Listen to lectures. Right now, in the month of Ramadan, there are tens, if not hundreds, if we also include lectures, alaykum salam rahmatullah, in English and Farsi and Urdu and in Arabic and other languages. There's hundreds of lectures that are being said in the month of Ramadan. We may benefit from the time of listening to these lectures. Replace haram with halal. Listen to these lectures. Listen to Quran. If you don't have time to read Quran, listen to Quran. Follow along. If you cannot recite properly, listen to someone who can recite properly. That way you will enhance your recitation of the Holy Quran. And if you're in a gathering where there's vain talk, where there's gossiping, there's backbiting, get up and leave. This is part of the fasting of the ears. We guard our ears in the month of Ramadan. We protect our ears in the month of Ramadan. This is the fasting of the ears. And finally, the fasting of the tongue. The tongue also has to fast. The Imam says, صَوْمُ الْقَلْبِ خَيْرٌ مِّن صِيَامِ اللِّسَانِ. The fasting of the heart is greater than the fasting of the tongue. The heart also fasts. The heart. What you desire. What you aspire. You aspire to become a millionaire. For what? If it's for akhirah, good. If it's for dunya, no. You aspire fame, popularity, recognition, worldly recognition, for your name to come out. Again, if it's for akhirah, that's good. But if it's for dunya, no, don't even let this come into your heart. The love of fame, the love of popularity. Jealousy, envy, this is all diseases of the heart. We guard the heart in the month of Ramadan. We let the heart fast and the mind also fasts. The mind also fasts from thinking of haram, contemplating haram, fantasizing over haram. Even if you're not planning on doing something haram, but you fantasize about it, you guard it. This is greater than the fasting of the tongue. وَصِيَامُ اللِّسَانِ خَيْرٌ مِّن صِيَامِ الْبَطْنِ. The fasting of the heart is greater than the fasting of the tongue. And the fasting of the tongue is greater than the fasting of the stomach. What good is it that my stomach fasts, but my tongue is like a scorpion, is like a snake? I backbite against this person, I slander this person, I accuse this person, I use foul language here, I lie, but I haven't ate for 12 hours, 13 hours. Who am I fooling? Who am I fooling? What am I gaining? My tongue never fasts, but my stomach wants to fast. It doesn't work that way. وَالْزِمْ, the Imam says in another hadith, وَلْيَكُنْ عَلَيْكَ وِقَارُ الصِّيَامِ. Have the composure of those who fast. And وَالْزَمْ مَا اسْتَطَعْتَ مِنَ الصَّمْتِ. Let's try to exercise silence, my dear friends. Exercise silence. In one hadith, the Imam says, شِيعَتُنَا الْخُرْسِ. Our Shia, they're mute. Have you seen those that are mute? They use sign language? Shia should be mute. Speak less. Listen more. Think more. We need to think more. Listen more. Talk less. But what do? We talk more. Think less. We listen less, but we talk more. This is not the qualities of Shia. Shi'atuna al-khurs. Our Shia are those who speak less. They don't speak. Have you seen our ulama? When we go to them, they're quiet. They're calm. They're always thinking. They're always pondering. And if they were to use their tongue, they use their tongue in what? Dhikr. Dhikrullah. Not in vain talk. Look at the economy today. The price of eggs. Costco doesn't have eggs. This person said this. This politician said. Vain talk. Talk that doesn't benefit my dunya nor benefits my akhirah. We exercise silence. We let our tongue fast. وَالسُّكُوتِ إِلَّا عَنْ ذِكْرِ اللَّهِ. One day, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he saw a woman cursing her servant, using foul language with her servant. And she was fasting. He told her, كيف تكونين صائمة وقد سببت جاريتك. You're fasting, but you curse your servant. أن الصوم ليس من الطعام والشراب. You see, this is where we get it wrong. We think that fasting is just from eating and drinking. No. Fasting is not just from eating and drinking. إنما جعل الله ذلك حجابا عما عن سواها من الفواحش من الفعل والقول. Rasulullah tells her that this is only the beginning. Not eating and not drinking is only the beginning. It is meant to get our entire body to fast. And then Rasulullah said, ما أقل الصوام وأكثر الجوع. There are a lot of people fasting. There's a lot of people that are hungry, but not everyone is fasting. All of us are hungry. In the month of Ramadan, there's 2 billion people that are hungry during the day. But how many of them are fasting and know the meaning of fasting? The entire body has to participate in fasting. What good is it that I'm not eating and I'm not drinking, but I lie, I argue, I speak harshly to my wife, I speak harshly to my kids, I take out my anger on them, I use foul language and I curse, and I call myself fasting. I don't control my tongue. Fasting, cursing, using foul language. This is one of the basic things that we have to learn in Ramadan, to control ourselves from cursing, using foul language. As-sab, as-shat. This is haram. In Ramadan or outside of Ramadan. To use foul language is haram. A lot of our youth, unfortunately, in every sentence, there's the F word, there's this word, there's that word, and they're fasting. If you learn anything from Ramadan, it's to control your tongue, to avoid such behavior, to avoid such words. And when we talk, not just when we talk, when we type, when we post, when we comment, even on WhatsApp, we control what we say. We control our words. Instead, let us use our tongues for dhikrullah, the remembrance of Allah. Quran, to recite Quran in the month of Ramadan. We believe that a person who recites a verse in the holy month of Ramadan, it's equivalent to reciting how many verses? 1,000. 1,000 verses outside of the holy month of Ramadan. وَمَنْ تَلَى فِيهِ آيَةً كَانَ كَمَنْ تَلَى أَلْفَ آيَةٍ فِي غَيْرِهِ مِنَ الشُّهُورِ. Reciting, this is the hadith of Rasulullah. He who recites a verse of Quran in Ramadan, it's as if he's recited 1,000 verses outside of Ramadan. We should all be in the habit of reciting a juz' of Quran every day in Ramadan, so that we finish the entire Quran in the month. We practice the fasting of the tongue. We be careful what we say. Instead, let's say good things to people. وَقُولُوا لِلنَّاسِ حُسْنًا. If you have nothing good to say, don't say it. Instead, say good things to people. Say good things to your wife. Thank her for the iftar that she's cooked. Thank her for the suhoor that she's cooked. Say good things to your children, to your co-workers, to your neighbors. Let's be in the habit in the month of Ramadan. In conclusion, my dear brothers and sisters, if my stomach is fasting from food and drink, but my bodily organs, but my other organs are not participating, I'm not gaining anything. Ramadan comes and goes, and I did not benefit spiritually nor religiously. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to benefit from the month of Ramadan, to allow us to grow spiritually and religiously in the holy month of Ramadan. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم إني أسألك أن تجعل فيما تقضي وتقدر من الأمر المحتوم في الأمر الحكيم، من القضاء الذي لا يرد ولا يبدل، أن تكتبنا من حجاج بيتك الحرام المبرور حجهم، المشكور سعيهم، المغفور ذنوبهم، المكفر عنهم سيئاتهم، وأن تجعل فيما تقضي وتقدر أن تطيل عمري في خير وعافية، وتوسع في رزقي، وتجعلني ممن تنتصر به لدينك ولا تستبدل بي غيري. أعوذ بجلال وجهك الكريم أن ينقضي عني شهر رمضان أو يطلع الفجر من ليلتي هذه ولك قبلي تبعة أو ذنب تعذبني عليه، ولأرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات. الفاتحة مع الصلوات.